The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Federation stretched nearly a kilometer in every direction, its walls constructed from living crystal that pulsed with soft azure light. Hundreds of species filled the circular seats rising toward the ceiling like steps in an ancient amphitheater. Ambassador Drexen Vallis of the Kryn Imperium stood at the chamber's center. He was tall and angular, with pale gray skin stretched taut over a skull that tapered to a sharp crest. His four eyes blinked in sequence as he waited for the noise to subside. Behind him, a massive holographic display showed a small blue-green planet spinning slowly in the void. "Honored members of the Assembly," Drexen began, his voice carrying perfectly through the chamber's acoustics. "I come before you today with a simple request. The Kryn Imperium wishes to expand into Sector 941. This sector contains valuable mining resources that will benefit the entire galactic economy." A murmur rippled through the assembled delegates. Sector 941 was on the outer rim, far from busy trade routes and powerful empires. Most species had never bothered exploring it. "There is, however, a minor complication," Drexen continued. He pressed a control and the holographic display changed. Now it showed a bipedal creature standing upright. It had no scales, no natural armor, no visible weapons. Its skin was soft and exposed, just two eyes positioned on the front of its rounded head. "This is a human," Drexen said. "They have recently colonized a world in Sector 941. They call it Nova Terra." The Mentari ambassador leaned forward. She was covered in thick emerald scales and had survived 4 assassination attempts. Very little surprised her anymore. "And what do you know of these humans?" she asked. Drexen smiled, revealing rows of small, sharp teeth. "Very little, because there is very little to know. They achieved interstellar travel less than a century ago. They have no natural armor, no venom, no claws or fangs. They require sleep for approximately 1/3 of their existence. They die from temperature changes that most of us would find merely uncomfortable." He paused for effect. "They are, in simple terms, one of the weakest species we have ever encountered." Laughter rippled through the chamber. The Vorath delegate, a massive creature with 4 arms and stone-like skin, slapped his knee. "And you need Assembly approval to deal with these soft creatures. Just brush them aside and take what you want." Drexen nodded slowly. "That is precisely what I intend to do. But protocol requires that I inform the Assembly before any military action against a spacefaring species, no matter how primitive. I am asking for formal approval to claim the human colony and its resources. If they resist, we will pacify them." The vote was quick. One by one, the species of the Galactic Assembly pressed their approval buttons. The motion passed unanimously. No one objected, no one asked questions. The humans were simply too small, too weak, and too far away to matter. As delegates filed out, the Mentari ambassador paused beside Drexen. "A word of caution, Ambassador," she said quietly. "I once read a file on these humans. They have an interesting history." Drexen waved his hand dismissively. "All species have interesting histories. What matters is their capabilities, and their capabilities are nothing." The Mentari ambassador studied him. "Perhaps, but the file mentioned something curious. These humans on their homeworld were once prey, small and weak, as you say. Yet somehow they became the dominant species. They killed creatures 10 times their size. They spread across every corner of their planet. They even killed each other in numbers that should have ended their species entirely." She paused. "They survived. Does that not concern you?" Drexen laughed. "Old stories and legends. Every species has them. The Kryn Imperium has conquered 37 species. These humans will simply be number 38. The Mentari ambassador said nothing more. She simply walked away, her scales clicking against the crystal floor. She had tried to warn him. That would have to be enough. Nova Terra, the last day. 12,000 light-years away, on a small planet covered in forests and lakes, a little girl named Emma ran through her family's garden. She was 6 years old, with blonde curly hair and a gap where her 2 front teeth had fallen out. In her hands, she carried a piece of paper covered in colorful drawings. "Papa, Papa, look what I made at school today." Her father, Marcus, looked up from the vegetables he was planting. He was a tall man with kind eyes and dirt on his hands. He had come to Nova Terra 12 years ago as part of the first wave of colonists. "What do you have there, little one?" he asked, wiping his hands. Emma thrust the paper toward him. It showed 4 stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. "It's us," she said proudly. "That's you, and that's Mama, and that's baby Lucas, and that's me." Marcus felt his heart swell. He picked up his daughter and held her close. "It's beautiful, the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." From inside the house, Rachel's voice called out, "Dinner is ready. Come inside before it gets cold." Marcus carried Emma toward the house. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. In the distance, he could see the lights of the colony's main city beginning to flicker on. 25,000 people lived on Nova Terra. It wasn't a big number by galactic standards, but to Marcus, it felt like home. They sat down together at dinner. Rachel had made stew with vegetables from their garden. Baby Lucas was sitting in his high chair making a mess with his food. Emma talked endlessly about her day, about her friends, about a butterfly she had seen during lunch. It was an ordinary evening, a perfect evening. None of them noticed the stars beginning to disappear, one by one, blocked out by massive shapes descending through the atmosphere. The attack. The first explosion came without warning. The windows of the house shattered inward. Marcus threw himself over Emma, shielding her with his body. Rachel screamed and grabbed Lucas from his chair. The ground shook as more explosions rocked the colony. Through the broken window, Marcus could see the sky filled with ships. They were enormous, each one larger than the colony's biggest building. Lights flashed from their undersides, and wherever those lights touched, fire erupted. "We have to run," Marcus said steadily. "We have to get to the bunkers." They ran out into chaos. People were everywhere, screaming, crying, trying to find their loved ones. The ships above continued their bombardment without mercy. Marcus saw a school collapse, children still inside. He saw a hospital take a direct hit. He saw people he'd known for years turn to ash in an instant. He ran faster, holding Emma's hand so tight his knuckles turned white. The bunker was 3 blocks away. They were so close, just a little further. The light hit them without warning. Marcus felt nothing. One moment he was running, holding his daughter's hand. The next, silence and darkness. The last thing he saw was Emma's drawing, somehow still clutched in the remains of his father's hand. The 4 stick figures still holding hands under the yellow sun. The aftermath. The attack lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 12,000 human beings were dead. The colony of Nova Terra was nothing but smoke and ashes. Kryn soldiers walked through the ruins, scanning for survivors. They found very few. Fleet Commander Zareth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and watched the destruction with satisfaction. The operation had gone exactly as planned. Minimal resistance, no casualties on the Kryn side. The humans died like the weak creatures they were. "Send a message to Earth," he ordered. "Inform them that their colony has been claimed by the Kryn Imperium. They have 1 standard month to surrender all remaining colonies and submit to our rule. If they refuse, we will pacify them." His communications officer nodded and began preparing the transmission. Zareth returned to his quarters to rest. It had been a long day, but a successful one. He did not know about Emma's drawing. He did not know about Marcus and Rachel and baby Lucas. He did not know that in the ashes of Nova Terra, a rescue team would eventually find that drawing, somehow preserved beneath the flames. They would find it still clutched in the remains of a father's hand, and they would weep. He did not know any of this, but he would learn. Earth's response. On Earth, the message arrived at 3:47 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Within minutes, every government had been notified. Within hours, every news network was broadcasting the same images: the burning ruins of Nova Terra, the massive Kryn ships, the body count that kept climbing. 12,000 dead, men, women, and children, farmers and teachers and doctors, entire families erased in a single night. The world watched in horror. And then, slowly, the horror turned to something else. The emergency session of the United Nations was the largest in human history. Every nation sent representatives. Enemies who hadn't spoken in decades sat side by side. Old grudges, ancient hatreds, generations of distrust, all of it melted away in the face of what had happened. When the Kryn demand was read aloud, surrender or be exterminated, there was silence in the chamber. Then someone laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh that comes before violence, the kind that means someone has made a terrible mistake. One by one, other voices joined in. The laughter spread through the chamber, growing louder until it echoed off the walls. Delegates from countries that had been at war for centuries laughed together. They laughed at the absurdity of the demand. They laughed at the arrogance of creatures who thought they could threaten humanity and expect submission. When the laughter finally died down, the Secretary General rose to speak. "I believe," she said calmly, "that our response should be clear." The vote was unanimous. The response was sent back along the same communication channel. It contained a single word, translated into every language the computer could identify: no. On the Eternal Dominion, Fleet Commander Zareth received the human response with confusion. "Just one word?" he asked. "Nothing else? No counteroffer? No plea for mercy?" "Nothing else, Commander. Just the word no." Zareth frowned. This was not how conquered species behaved. They usually begged, they bargained, they offered tribute, resources, anything to avoid destruction. They did not simply refuse. "Perhaps they do not understand the situation," he said finally. "Send another message. Explain in detail what will happen to their remaining worlds if they do not comply." The message was sent. The response came back within an hour. It was the same single word: no. Zareth felt the first stirring of unease in his chest. Something was wrong. These humans were supposed to be weak, primitive, insignificant. They were supposed to surrender. Why were they not afraid? He did not know it yet, but he had just made the worst mistake of his life. He had attacked a species that did not know how to surrender. He had killed their children, and in doing so, he had awakened something that had slumbered for centuries. On Earth, the factories were already beginning to retool. The scientists were already beginning to design. The soldiers were already beginning to train. Humanity was not preparing to negotiate. Humanity was preparing for war. And when humans go to war, truly go to war, the galaxy would soon learn that there is no force in existence more terrifying. The transformation. The transformation of Earth happened faster than anyone thought possible. In the first 72 hours after the attack, the emergency coalition was formed. Nations that had threatened each other with nuclear weapons just weeks before now shared military secrets freely. Factories that built cars and appliances shut down overnight and reopened to build weapons, armor, and warships. There was no arguing, no debate, no time for politics. 12,000 people were dead, and humanity had only one thought: make them pay. Commander Elena Vasquez stood at the center of the Global Command Center, watching dozens of holographic displays show the progress of human industry. Every screen showed numbers climbing upward, weapons manufactured, ships completed, soldiers trained. The numbers grew every hour, every minute, every second. "Report," she asked to her aide, Captain Torres, who hadn't slept in 3 days. Torres checked his tablet, dark circles under his eyes. "We've converted 95% of heavy manufacturing to military production. 18 shipyards are now operational. We've had 52 million volunteers from military service." Elena nodded slowly. "And the weapons research?" "Progressing faster than expected. The physics teams think they've improved our plasma weapons by 70%. Engineering has developed new armor that should hold up against Kryn fire." "How did they do it so fast?" Torres smiled grimly. "They're not sleeping, ma'am. None of them are. They say they'll sleep when the war is over." Elena looked at her aide more carefully. She saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands. She saw the same thing in everyone these days. The entire species was running on anger and grief and determination. By every measure of human physiology, people should be collapsing. They needed sleep, they needed rest. But they didn't stop. They couldn't stop. Every time someone felt tired, they thought of those 12,000 dead on Nova Terra. They thought of the children who would never grow up, the families that would never be whole again. And somehow they found the strength to keep going. This was something the Kryn had not understood. They had not accounted for rage. 2 years, 4 months, and 17 days. That was how long it took humanity to tear down the Kryn Imperium. Fleet Commander Zareth stood on the bridge of his crippled flagship, watching his homeworld burn. The Kryn Defense Fleet, the largest armada their species had ever assembled, had fought with the desperation of the doomed. It had not been enough. "Admiral," his communications officer said weakly, "the humans are broadcasting. They want to discuss terms." "Our surrender?" Zareth asked bitterly. "No, Commander. Theirs. They're offering us the opportunity to surrender before things get worse." The face that appeared on screen was one Zareth had seen in countless intelligence briefings. Elena Vasquez, Supreme Commander of Human Forces. She was older now. Gray streaked her dark hair. Lines of exhaustion marked her face. But her eyes were the same. Cold, determined, utterly without mercy. "Elena Vasquez," she said, "I assume you know why I'm calling. You wish to discuss terms. I wish to end this war on our terms. You have one chance to accept them. If you refuse, we will continue until there is nothing left of your civilization." "And what are your terms?" "First, complete and unconditional surrender of all Kryn military forces. Second, every individual who participated in the attack on Nova Terra will be identified and tried for crimes against humanity. This includes you, Commander. This includes every officer in your chain of command." Zareth felt cold. "You want us to hand over our own people for execution?" "I didn't say execution. We will conduct fair trials. Those found guilty will face punishment according to the severity of their crimes." She paused. "But all of them will face justice." "And if we refuse, then we will take them by force, and the process will be significantly less gentle." Zareth considered his options. He had very few. His fleet was destroyed. His planet was surrounded. The human ground forces were already landing. "Is that all?" he asked finally. "No, there is one more thing." Vasquez's expression changed. "The names of the 12,000 people who died on Nova Terra, you will learn them. Every Kryn will learn them. Your schools will teach them. Your monuments will bear them. For as long as your civilization exists, you will remember what was done and what it cost." "You want us to memorize the names of the people we killed? I want you to remember them. I want your children to remember them. I want your children's children to remember them 1,000 years from now." She leaned forward. "Do you understand what I'm telling you, Commander? We are not destroying you because we do not want to become what you are, but you will never forget, and neither will we." Zareth stood in silence. Then slowly he lowered his head. "We accept your terms. The Kryn Imperium surrenders." The message. The message was broadcast across the galaxy 1 week later. "We are humanity. 2 years ago, a hostile species attacked one of our colonies. They killed 12,000 of our people, including thousands of children. They expected us to surrender. We did not. Instead, we fought. We fought for 2 years across a dozen star systems. We lost nearly 500,000 of our own, but in the end, we won. The war is now over. The Kryn Imperium has surrendered. Their commanders will face justice. Their people will remember what was done. To every species in this galaxy, we offer this message. We do not seek conquest. We do not seek empire. We want only to live in peace. If you leave us alone, we will leave you alone. If you trade with us, we will trade with you. If you offer friendship, we will accept it. But if you attack us, if you threaten our families, if you harm our children, then know this: there is no force in this galaxy that will protect you from what follows. We are humanity. We remember, and we do not forgive." The message ended. Across the galaxy, species that had watched from a safe distance considered what they had witnessed. They had seen a weak, primitive species transform into something unstoppable, and they learned the lesson that the Kryn learned too late. Never attack humanity. Never threaten their children. Never give them a reason to hunt, because if you did, they would come for you, and they would never, ever stop. On the bridge of the Remembrance, Elena Vasquez stood at the observation window, looking out at the stars. The war was over. The dead were avenged. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity. But the cost was so high. She held Emma's drawing in her hands, the paper worn nearly transparent from 2 years of constant handling. The 4 stick figures still held hands under the yellow sun. "I kept my promise," she whispered. "I brought them justice. I hope it was enough." The stars offered no answer. Elena folded the drawing carefully and placed it in her pocket. Then she turned away from the window and walked off the bridge, leaving the war behind her. But she would never forget Nova Terra. None of them would. Not the humans who would carry the memory across the centuries. Not the Kryn who would teach the names to every generation that followed. Not the galaxy that would remember forever that humanity was not prey. They were the predators. They always had been. They thought we were weak. They thought we would surrender. They were wrong about both. Commander Elena Vasquez, Supreme Commander of Human Defense Forces, Year 2, post-Nova Terra.